And a good Wednesday summer morning. Eagles fans, appreciate you streaming in early here with us on Birds 365. That would be my partner, John McMullen. I would be Jody McDonald, and we're hanging with you for the next 2 hours. Got two good guests coming your way, and we'll give you details on that coming up in just a second. J-Mac, how are you this morning? The countdown is on.
Yeah, a week away, man. It's getting close. A week away from on field. Obviously, they'll report on Tuesday of next week. So, yeah, we're almost here. And I think it's a long grind to get through this off season, Jody. I think it's perfect for the Eagles in the fact that Phillies are relevant again. I think they'll skate through the summer and then have a little bit of time to get themselves ready to go. But I think what really is going to help them, and I mentioned this yesterday on the show and a couple of times, I think they're going to have some hiccups because of all the changes and all the turnover. But boy, the NFC is set up so nicely for them. I think they have an opportunity to get through those hiccups, take their time, don't have to panic. Nobody's going to run away from them, and then ultimately just right the ship and be in a good position to be NFC champions again, or be at least make at least a deep playoff run. And that's why they're the betting favorites on the NFC, and they should be. By the way, they should be.
Absolutely should be. And because of that, I don't think they're going to be skating through anything. Not in this town, not when you're talking about the football team. They will be front and center. And luckily for us, people are streaming here to Birds 365 because they want their Eagles info and their Eagles information. And we'll try and give it to them.
Well, by skating, I mean from a football sense. I don't mean it from, they're going to get that first loss. They're going to get crapped upon. I mean, that goes without saying. That's stipulated. From a football sense, I think they can, go about things calmly, and I think they will, because I think they understand there's significant turnover, both on the field, 7 new starters, coaching staff we talked about. They know there's got to be some hiccups. So I think that's understood inside the building. Outside the building, lost one. They're going to get destroyed.
No, and it depends when loss number one comes. We would spend an entire week on this when it came out, when the schedule came out. I think the NFL did the Eagles a favor the way they constructed their schedule. Some people said the Eagles were disrespected by the way they. I only care about, and this is all speculative, the quality of the opponent, the strength of the schedule. At the Patriots, it's Brady Day, so that's kind of a unfortunate
bad spot. Week one, it's a bad spot. I
said
it last year. This year, it's even worse.
A little bit, but again, do you believe the Patriots have as talented a roster?
No, not even close.
Right. So you're getting a team that you're better than. A road game out of the way. Minnesota dominated on a Thursday night last year. They got them again this year. I don't care that it's a Thursday night. It's a short turnaround for both the Eagles and the Vikings. It's the same thing. Tampa's going to be bad, another bad road team. If you're going to play road games, you might as well play teams that you're better than on the road, and that's certainly Tampa. And then they get Washington at home. Remember, Eagle fans, the Eagles lost to the Commanders at home last year. Other than the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts' only loss last year was at home against the Commanders. So a little bit of a revenge factor. I'm sure Nick Sirianni will play with that to his team. And then they get the Rams again on the road, a team that you're better than. They've got a more talented roster than the Rams. That's 5 winnable games, Johnny Mac, to start this season.
Oh, I agree. On paper, it looks very good early. But I do expect them to lose a game. And, when you go through that list, they shouldn't. I mean, on paper, they shouldn't. But I do expect them to lose a game in that group. And the two obvious candidates would be week one at New England, which would be a situation that they would get shat upon for the reasons we're talking about. They're a better team, but I don't think fans put enough credence in the season openers and lived through it in Detroit last year, and it's a bigger deal than usual for the Patriots because of Tom Brady Day. And oh, by the way, the Patriots, while they're not what they once were, they're not a terrible team. So it's one of those teams that can come up and bite anybody in a parity-driven NFL. So I think that's a bad spot. And then Washington, they beat them last year, and they're a division foe. And a lot of uncertainty with Sam Howell. We have no idea what Sam Howell is. I don't care what anybody says. Jody McDonald, Ed Kratz on both ends of the spectrum. We have no idea what we're going to see from Sam Howell. But just those games tend to be tougher than they should be with the Washington. They tend to play better against Washington down at FedEx Field, at least in recent seasons. A little bit of strange. I agree with you. The Minnesota game, that's the easiest spot. Not only is it a short week, it's the Eagles' home opener, which is the exact same scenario as last year against that team. Overwhelmed, and they're the ones traveling on the short week. And by the way, I don't think they're a very good football team. So that I think is an easy spot. At Tampa Bay, yeah, I'm with you. That's a bad football team. It's just a matter of how bad. At Los Angeles, bad football team. Even though those are road games, I'd be more concerned with Washington just because of the history and the familiarity of those two teams.
Oh, by the way, Eagles last year rode Warriors. The road did not bother the Eagles at all last year. And I know it's a different team. We know the free agents left. We know the replacement guys who've come in either via the draft or free agency or trade. Yeah, I like the Eagles' chances to be very good on the road again this year. So I'm not fretting that, it's New England's home opener. It's Tom Brady Day. They're better than the Patriots. So, yeah. To use the word you use, shat upon. They will be shat upon by me if they lose week 1 to New England because they're not supposed to lose to New England because they're a better team than New England.
But, what is the first game they're going to be not favored? Probably at the Jets, if nothing changes. Maybe.
We got to see what the Jets,
depending on how the Jets play.
If the Eagles are 5-0, like I think they're going to be, at worst, as Johnny suggests, somebody jumps up and bites them in the butt, surprises them 4-1. If the Jets are 4-1 as well, then yeah, that could be a toss-up game. But if the Jets are 3-2 and the Eagles are 5-0, Eagles are the favorite on the road.
But if the Jets got to take care of their business. But if the Jets are 4-1. I think they're favorite in that game because of Aaron Rodgers, and maybe they shouldn't be, but I think they will be if they take care of their business. If they don't, then you got to go down to at Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah, that's it. That's the game.
So, I mean, it's a lot like last year, despite everyone's talk about being, a tougher schedule, and it is a tougher schedule. The Eagles are going to be the favorites in the vast majority of games. And, as we said, could be the Jets, will be Kansas City. Then even if you look past that, at Dallas, depending on how the Cowboys are playing, would be a favorite, the Cowboys. And that's it.
And by the way, I took a quick peek. I just went through this yesterday, but I punched it up just in case so I don't make a mistake because I divvied up my Jet tickets with my Jet season ticket partner. Was my brother's. My brother had the tickets when he passed away. He gave them to me, so I still share them with his buddy, who's my buddy as well. But certainly my brother was much closer to Michael Dell than I was. So we just split up our tickets yesterday. So I know the Jet schedule: home Buffalo, at Dallas, home New England. Which, by the way, they haven't beat the Patriots forever. Even when the Patriots aren't all that good, the Patriots find a way to sweep the Jets.
But you're getting that the Jets are different this year. They got to prove it, but yeah, I mean they've been the Jets. I get it. You know it better than most, but they're going to be different this year. That's my prediction.
But there's a Patriot thing that seems to override everything else, which just annoys the bejesus out of me. Then they play Kansas City at home and at Denver before they get to the Eagles. 4-1 is a maybe. 3-2 might be more likely. So yeah, I think the Eagles could be a favorite in that game. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let us deal with the fact that they got to show up and start showing out, and guys are playing for playing time. Spot on the 53-man roster. Some players just hoping to get to that practice squad, so they're in the National Football League, undrafted free agents and the like. Johnny Mac, the process starts as soon as they show up, as soon as they get out onto the field. Or does it? How much do you think Eagle decisions are made by Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff, Howie Roseman and his underlings, by what guys do or what guys show in meetings? That it's mostly the coach talking. Yeah, they'll every once in a while throw a question to a guy. You and I have never been in that room. We're not invited in, and neither one of us were players. Some media members here in Philadelphia can actually give actual firsthand insight as to how meetings go with coaches and the like. Are players evaluated in meetings, do you believe?
Oh, hey, yeah. And, more than the average team here in Philadelphia, because they've scaled back so much and they put so much emphasis on, and I would add walkthroughs to that as well. They put so much emphasis on the mental part of it. Yeah, I mean, if you're not paying attention, if you're dozing off, now there's levels, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's certain players that are so good that they can probably get away with a little bit more. But if you're talking the back end of the roster, say the final 10 people, yeah, I mean, they better be on point in meetings and things like that, because that's kind of what sets those guys apart. It's always about talent first. And by no means, there's a lot of guys that are really good players that are really good mentally as well. Really good. Starts with Jalen Hurts, right? Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, all the familiar names. I mean, kind of sets them apart because they're really talented. Plus, they do all the other stuff. But then there's players that, are so talented. Maybe they get away with some stuff. And those guys don't have to worry as much, because I always like Jimmy Johnson's quote about, I'll treat you all fairly, but I'm not treating you all the same.
Right.
And his point was like, hey, Michael Irvin's over there, Emmitt Smith's over there, Troy Aikman's over there. If you're the 53rd guy on the roster, you're going to have a different set of standards. That's just the reality of the NFL. But yeah, it's very important. It's more important here than most places because the Eagles don't practice a lot. So
right. And Jimmy Johnson hammered his point home years ago when he cut Curvin Richards, his backup running back, because he fell asleep in a meeting. And someone asked him afterwards, what happens if Emmitt fell asleep in the meeting? And he just kind of laughed and said, Curvin Richards isn't Emmitt Smith. So yeah, there are different levels of what you need to accomplish on the field, off the field, depending on where you are at in your career. And I'll be critical of the Philadelphia Eagles here and the 31 other teams in the National Football League, at least my point of view. Way too much is made of a guy's background, his resume, where he came from, his pedigree. I hate that friggin' word, pedigree. People talk about, what's his pedigree? Where you were drafted, what they gave you as far as a signing bonus goes. I know there's some economic ties to this, but judge the guy what he's doing right now. Judge what he did on the field today. Judge how he was in the meeting. You want to judge the meetings and attentiveness and the like? Okay, do it. Don't give him a break because he was a third-round draft pick as compared to undrafted. Don't give him a break because you gave him a slightly higher signing bonus. I think Eagles do that, and I think all 31 other teams in the National Football League do that. And I'm sorry, if I were running a team, if I had Howie Roseman's position, you'd be evaluated every day, and evaluations would stay very fluid, and you could move yourself up or you could move yourself back. I am not referring to Jalen Hurts. He's kind of locked in by both what he's done on the field and his contract. There are some exceptions to the rule that I'm laying out here. But for the grand majority of the other guys on the roster, what have you done for me lately? Janet Jackson mentality for yours truly. What you have done previously, or where you were drafted, or where you played your college football, irrelevant to me. Show me what you're doing on the field for me right now. That's just me.
Well, I'm kind of in between. I agree. It's a little bit too much to fault it to too much. I would agree with that part of it. But there is, the reality of, and, that's where analytics come into it. I mean, they spend a lot of time, studying previous success stories at particular positions, and they try to cobble together sort of the baseline. All right, what makes these guys good from a talent perspective? And, if you stray too far from that, you're going to get hurt. But if you devote yourself to it and make it a religion, you're also going to get hurt. So I'm kind of in between. And then the reality is, look, as a GM in this league, and this is one of the luxuries Howie Roseman has that other GMs don't have. If you bail on first round picks, and it's not fair. I mean, it's not fair. You're going to get fired. So by that nature, they're going to give those guys more rope than a 7th round pick, an undrafted guy, what have you. And it's incremental, 2nd round pick, not as much as a 1st round pick, but more than a 5th round pick or a day 3 pick, and so on down the line. And they're going to get more chances, more opportunities. But in theory, if you're doing your job right, they're also more gifted. They're also more talented. So you would also want to give them a longer rope from that perspective to maybe the light goes off. But, and Nick Sirianni said this during rookie camp when I asked him, especially with the Eagles and especially in this environment, how do these guys stand out, the tryout players, I asked him. And he said, they're on the field for an hour and 10 minutes. How do they stand out? And they only ended up, and he gave me that great quote about, don't miss Adam Thielen. Don't miss Adam Thielen. Don't miss Adam Thielen. If something like that breaks through, you got to be savvy enough to understand it. But you also, you can't count on that. And it's the vast majority of, you better hit on your 1st round picks. You better hit on your premium picks, round 2, round 3 for the most part. Jalen Reagor, we look at all the time. It's not that he doesn't have the talent to play in the NFL. He certainly does. He didn't work out. Everybody misses on 1st round picks. Everybody misses on picks all the time. But those guys are if you're in the 1st round of the NFL draft, you're gifted. You're gifted from an athletic standpoint. They might screw it up from a work ethic standpoint, from a technique, from a fundamental standpoint. They might screw it up from a coaching standpoint, a player development standpoint. It's what I killed the Sixers for in the NBA. They don't develop players. They just, all right, we drafted a good player or drafted a bad player. That's it. Player development is a real thing. So if you're, and I saw you kind of roll your eyes there. You think if you're a 1st round pick in the NFL draft, you're not physically gifted?
You've got, specifically, you've got a gift. Some guys are drafted on a gift, that he has one aspect of his game that is off the charts good, and they think this goes back into your developing type of, and then they don't develop everything else. That some guys are very good at one thing, but you look past shortcomings in other areas because, if he can do, we can't teach this. He is so athletically gifted in this area. We'll teach him everything else. And then you find out you can't teach him everything else, and those shortcomings aren't good enough. And that's how you get 1st round busts. You can have one aspect. So let me finish my thought, John. I extrapolated a little of what you said, that you're athletically gifted. The way you said it made it sound like in everything. Not necessarily. You can be athletically good. Part of your game can be outrageously good, and that's what gets you drafted as high as you are. And they just over-evaluate what they can teach him at the other spots and the other parts of his game, and that's how you get yourself a flop.
Well, and I've heard this from numerous scouts over the years. Now, you might be right. They might not be. You're incredibly gifted for your position. I should say that. Obviously, and if you're an offensive lineman, they're looking for different traits than wide receiver. Obviously, they're incredibly gifted for big people, movement wise. They might be limited technique wise, but I can't tell you how many times, and they certainly overdraft people all the time, but they usually overdraft people because they overvalue those traits.
Right.
And they overvalue how gifted they are athletically for their particular position. That's where you get in trouble. And maybe they don't have the instincts, but that's a big thing. At linebacker, for instance. I mean, nobody's going to question Devin White from his athleticism. The guy's ridiculous, but he doesn't have any instincts. And it manifests itself on the field, and you end up where you end up. And he had a great, obviously, postseason run, but hasn't been much beyond that. And that's a top 5. I think it was a 5th pick. But the larger point I would say is they don't fail. And I've heard this from so many people. They don't fail because of their skill level. They fail because of something else. It might be work ethic. It might be coaching. It might be technique. It might be system. It might be 100 things. It might be off the field, but it's not because they don't have the talent. And I've heard that from so many scouts. And then it goes incrementally down the line. If you're a 7th round pick, and there are notable exceptions. Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata has 1st round gifts, but he never played the position before. Never played football before, organized football. But if he did, if he grew up here and he was 6'8" and 360 with that athleticism and that wingspan and all that, he would have been a 1st round pick. And who knows, they might have overvalued him because he had to be taught everything. But he's such an outlier. That's a bad example.
Right. And for me, it comes down to how do you mesh them all together? That's what great general managers have to do. They have to be able to, kind of gets back to the point that I was making about Jordan Mailata is the prime example of the fact that you don't worry about where a guy was drafted. You saw what you saw. You liked what you liked. You got him into your camp. It started to grow, and now he's one of the best left tackles in all of football. That's a perfect example of the Eagles not over evaluating what your pedigree is. Jordan Mailata didn't have a pedigree. He's just a big guy with some athletic traits, and they made him into a top 10.
And he ultimately beat out a 1st round pick.
Right. Which is that kudos to the Eagles. I tip my cap to the Eagles that they did not allow pedigree to determine who should be playing, what guys should be given more opportunities. Like, they let it be decided on the field, and they sure as all got it right at the left tackle position. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Mac and Mac. It's a Mike Gill day. We're headed down the shore. A little warm out there. We are certainly in the summer. We'll see what Gill's doing this summer, and as he gets ready, like us, for an upcoming Eagle season. Mike Gill from the Sports Bash next here on Birds 365.
Do you stream